Let's begin.
Good morning. Thank you for listening to Political Pitchforks on AM 1280 The Patriot. I am Susan Smith here with Jeremy Munson, and we have a zillion things to talk about and not enough time to talk about them. So we're going to kick it off right now talking about what a lot of political people are talking about, which is the fundraising reports that we have now both at the FEC level on the federal candidates and also at the MN Campaign Finance Board with the statewide candidates and the local people. So why don't we start with talking about the Senate race, the U.S. Senate race. And I, full disclosure, I am helping Royce White with his campaign. Again, I helped him with the endorsement in the primary 2 years ago. And now here we are again. So let's talk about Tafoya. And she raised, somebody raised a lot of money, right? And on her behalf. And so, I have no problem saying that, in this situation, what we have is we have a lot of money coming in to Minnesota that people helping her at the encouragement of a lot of people in Washington, D.C. who don't really know anything about Minnesota politics and frankly don't really care about Minnesota politics. And I think that is detrimental to the state of Minnesota, in my personal opinion.
Well, Susan, I would disagree. I think that Minnesota has been in the spotlight nationally as quite an embarrassment for us as residents, but there's a lot of the news stories. I mean, it started from George Floyd, and it's just been always we're making an embarrassment. And so they do want to see Minnesota, like conservatives in D.C. do want to see Minnesota find freedom and limited government and elect Republicans up and down the ballot. So it is of interest to them. But to your point, they don't know what's going on locally in local politics. They just see candidates, hey, check the boxes. Are they, good on paper? We've had people in CD1 go, wow, we need somebody that's a teacher and military, just like Tim Walz, because he was elected for 12 years. And so they found like Tim Walz's clone over in Rochester to run against Finstad this cycle. But they don't really know what's going on the ground, to your point. But the moment that Tafoya announced she was running for U.S. Senate, obviously she was recruited or went out there and, begged for permission, that kind of stuff. The NRSC endorsed her campaign. And with that endorsement is kind of the not the guarantee, but there will be likely $10 million or more dollars coming into the state. And in the first 3 months of this year, she's already raised over $2 million for her campaign. Obviously, independent expenditures will come into the state and help all Republicans. And that's the hope, is that we can bring in money from either our gubernatorial candidate or our U.S. Senate candidate, which are kind of the top of the ticket to help all the down ballot races win the state house and the state Senate. So she posted just over $2 million in fundraising. Royce White, what was Royce's numbers here?
I think he's bringing in $20,000 to $30,000 a month. And but Royce's point is generally not to fundraise, as you know. He prefers to reach out to people directly in person. When he meets with people, he tends to convert people to his team. He's very dynamic, and he clings to the principles, and he's a great speaker. So I think he believes most of the money in politics is not actually true to politics, and he has. He's sort of dipped his toe into some of the fundraising plans that people propose for candidates that are newer. And he saw, that basically sometimes 80, 90, 95% of the money never gets to the candidate. It's very misleading to voters. I think there should be a nutrition label. I think I've said that before, like a nutrition label on every campaign contribution. Before you click that final button, you should confirm that that you're giving $100. The candidate's going to get $4. WinRed's going to get $15 or something, and then the actual person who sent the ad is going to get the rest, which is almost all the money. So I think people have the right to know that, and most people, if they saw that, would go, wait a minute, I'm not doing that. Click, turn it off, right? And so I think we have far too much of that. But I do think that it is, there's a time for the money from outstate to come in. I don't think it is in the pre-endorsement process. I think that this process of endorsement should really be about, and I think that primary as well, I think it should be about the voters in their district. And I think that candidates, and I know you're going to laugh, but I think candidates should simply say, I'm not accepting money prior to the primary from anybody not in my district, because it's the district they have to represent. And when you start getting, contributions of, $25,000 from Alabama and $25,000 from South Carolina, from a PAC, from this PAC, from that PAC, I think that much of this is why we have a problem in politics in Minnesota. I think the money is terrible. After the primary, when the people of Minnesota have said, this is our candidate, when the Republicans say, this is our candidate, they want to come in and help us beat the Democrats so they can have a majority and all that. That's a different discussion than a pre-endorsement attempt to manipulate. And I think in Tafoya's case, I'm not saying she's not a very nice person, I think she should have run in CD3. I think her values align with far more people in CD3 than, Kelly, Dr. Death, Morrison, who wrote the most extreme abortion bill in the country. I believe that Michelle Tafoya's views on this issue are far more in line with CD3. I get calls every day from people outstate Minnesota who are like, I will never door knock. I will never walk in a parade with her. I will never phone call if she's included in the script. I just won't do it because they are pro-life people and they aren't going to support her. And by the way, she's kind of trying to shift her narrative now because she, I think, is realizing that I don't think she planned on having this hard a fight at the endorsement level. And it's aggressive. I mean, it is an aggressive fight that she's facing. And I don't think she realized she's not really been political. She's not involved with Minnesota voters. And so I just think that she didn't understand when she's going around to these conventions and talking, and if you're not in 3, 4, or 5, right, you're facing a whole different crowd of people, And so
it is. I think it's going to be an interesting endorsing convention. Personally, I don't even know if we're going to get to an endorsement with the 3 candidates we have that are in the front runners, likely splitting the delegate vote. I want to run through the numbers here. So Angie Craig, who's total DC swamp rat, raised almost $5 million or $2.5 million. She's got almost $5 million on cash on hand. Peggy Flanagan on the Democrat side, who is likely to be the nominee based on her polling numbers. She raised $1.3 million and she's got a little over $1 million cash on hand. Michelle Tafoya raised $2 million. She's got $1.85 million cash on hand, which is a pretty good that she didn't spend a ton of money on fundraising like I have seen other candidates. Adam Schwarzy raised $280,000. He's got $220 cash on hand. David Hann raised $130,000. He only has 18 grand, so he's got a high burn rate. But I don't know what he's spending the money on because I haven't seen a nickel of worth of advertising out there. I didn't even know he was still running.
My guess is campaign consultants and things like that.
Yeah.
People should not discount David Hann. I mean, I actually think, we can't discount anybody actually because we never know.
I'm discounting.
I know
David
you are.
Hann.
Well, I think we have to be prepared for all of it, right? For all of it. And
David Hann is a perfect example of looks great on paper. He was the former Minnesota GOP party chair. He was the minority leader of the Senate. He's a well-spoken guy, but nobody on the grassroots has respect for him, and they will tell 20 friends never to vote for him. I don't see a path for him. Yeah. And Royce White raised $84,000. He's got $82,000 cash on hand, so he hasn't really spent much this year of the money that he's raised. And let's jump into the governor's race really quick in the last minute. Amy Klobuchar raised almost $5 million, has $3 million cash on hand. Mike Lindell raised $495,000. He spent most of that. He's at high burn rate, which is interesting, but he has national donors that he can rely on to go back to that well. Yep, Lisa Damath raised just under $250,000, has $500,000 cash on hand. Kendall raised $124,000, has $100,000 cash on hand. Kristen Robbins, Peggy Bennett, Patrick Knight, they all raised around $40,000 to $60,000, and they have some money on. Actually, Kristen Robbins has $200,000 cash on hand, which is twice what Kendall has. So I think she's going to be in it through the endorsement all the way to the primary.
Yeah. My nightmare scenario is they appoint Klobuchar to the Minnesota Supreme Court Chief Justice position. Angie Craig goes to fill Amy's Senate seat. Dean Phillips runs for governor, and we got Peggy Flanagan in the Senate race. God help us.
We'll be back.
Let's begin.
Welcome back to Political Pitchforks on AM 1280 The Patriot. I'm Jeremy Munson, and with Susan Sjogren-Smith, like usual. Today we're talking about a lot of different political news in Minnesota. This week, the financial numbers are posted from all the campaigns. We talked about the U.S. Senate and some gubernatorial race fundraising numbers, which don't mean everything, but it does mean something. And we need to have campaigns that are organized, and the amount of money that they're raising, or if it's growing or slowing, indicates whether they're building momentum with the base or not, or just maybe gathering money from the swamp. You have to really dig into the FEC and the Minnesota Campaign Finance Board reports. If you're kind of a nerdy politico like Susan and I, you do jump on those and see where the money's coming from. I've been really fascinated to see how some of our major donors in Minnesota are sending max contributions to multiple candidates, which is interesting. They haven't just chosen their pony. They're kind of just anybody will do. On the legislative caucus side, so we have the Minnesota GOP and the DFL party, and there are party units that are set up like BPOUs, the local party units. There's a party unit for each of the chambers in the Minnesota legislature for each party. So the Republicans, Minnesota GOP has designated the Senate Victory Fund be the party unit that supports electing Republicans in the Minnesota Senate. They raised $500,000, and they have $2.8 million cash on hand. That's the huge war chest. The DFL Senate caucus has almost identical fundraising numbers, $500,000, $2.9 million cash on hand. Interestingly, they have some of the same donors, may shock you, like some of the tribes and things that donate to both caucuses. The DFL House caucus and the Republican, the HRCC, the House Republican Campaign Committee, they raised a little bit different. The DFL outraised us. DFL has $500,000 raised and 1.7 million cash on hand. House Republicans raised $400,000 cash on hand, 1.3. I think the numbers in the House Republican side are down because their leader of the House is running for governor. And we talked about this earlier, how when Gazelka ran, he was the Senate Republican majority leader. Many of the PACs and stuff that used to donate to the Senate Victory Fund were donating to his gubernatorial campaign. So that's a detriment to the House Republicans, and that lowers their chances of winning the majority this fall. So those are the numbers. Energy in Minnesota, I mean, I think with fraud being front and center, they have a really good shot of winning the majority. But with Trump's posts and going to war and inflation looming based on all the deficit spending in D.C., the outlook isn't that great. One of the things that I saw this week was they posted the average tax refund for Americans is going up by $704, but that the average American family will spend like $710 more in gasoline for the year. So it completely wipes out the big, beautiful bills, tax cuts for the average American family. And that's what are you seeing, Susan? Is it the energy out there for Republicans to win this year? I mean,
I think that we have a serious problem, I think, in the Republican Party right now. And I think it's important for all Republicans to pay attention. I really believe that the Republican Party in Minnesota, Jeremy's heard me say this a lot of times, but I'm going to say it again. I believe that the Democrat Party organization and the Republican Party organization are actually the two most important organizations in the state of Minnesota, because the actions taken for good or bad by those organizations end up affecting every aspect of all of our lives, whether we like it or not. And I think that far too many people on both sides are disengaged with the actual functioning of those organizations. So you're affected by them, but you don't pay attention to them. You don't get involved with them because you don't really know how to get involved with them. But the truth is, when those parties are broken, when they are pandering to the wrong people, when they are forgetting their founding principles, and I think that's a problem on the Democrat side, just like our side. I think the progressive movement in no way reflects traditional Democrat principles, Democrat Party principles. I think that they have been pulled way far away from that. And on the Republican side, we have the same problem. We have our principles, and the people that are trying to cling to those principles and kind of restore the foundation of our state and our country using those principles, those people are regularly marginalized and attacked by a group of people in power in Minnesota, and it is hurting our party. And far too many people don't really understand the fight that's going on within our party in Minnesota. And they often think the people that are defending the principles are the problem because the people who control the megaphone in the Republican Party attack those people all the time. And it's very discouraging to the activists who are the people who volunteer and door knock and walk in parades. And so I spend my time really trying to keep those people motivated and understanding that this is a fight that we just have to fight, and we have to keep fighting. We have to keep volunteering. We have to keep working for our candidates. But I do think that it's wearing on people, and very discouraging that we have delegates this week, next week, that are phenomenal people that have been barred from participating in a convention for defending their right to participate in the political process. And so I think that the only way we really solve this is that we actually hold our political parties accountable for the actions taken by the elected leadership. And when those leaders fail to do their job, or when they violate rules or the Constitution or even the law, we have to be the first people to call it out and say we're not going to tolerate that behavior. Because if we don't, how do we argue about the Democrats? How do we do it? So for me, I think we should be, I actually believe we have been winning everything. You know that. I mean, I believe that we have tremendous amount of fraud in our elections. I think the absentee ballot boards were created and expanded specifically to hide what really goes on, to allow for this manipulation of election results. There's just no question in my mind that is the point of the absentee ballot boards, the lack of accountability. The best thing we could do is eliminate absentee ballot boards and same-day voter registration, and just make people follow the laws, get registered ahead of time, and vote in an orderly way on election day. And I think that is how we get back to fair elections where we really know. But we don't even know how many people live in Minnesota who are legally registered, because now we give driver's licenses to people who aren't actually eligible to vote.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll get into the election integrity stuff in the next segment. I think that what you alluded to is that there's this infighting within the Republican Party. Mm-hmm. I see it as the Republican Party of Minnesota has stretched so thin and wide in our scope of philosophy, if you will. Like the moderates have gone so far to the left. We have these big government, Republicans who support big government, and right. We have on the far right, we have very limited government conservatives who want to actually shrink government and right. attack fraud and all this kind of stuff.
Principles.
And and so there's when you stretch a party thin like that, there's larger differences in policy and more kind of frustration and fighting in the party. Now, the Democrats are doing the exact same thing.
That's right.
The communists and the socialists that have stretched their party so far to the left, they are now having a lot of infighting, and we'll see that play out in the U.S. Senate primary between Angie Craig and Peggy Flanagan, where it looks like Peggy Flanagan's numbers show that she might even win the primary, being underfunded and more radical socialist and harder person to win the general, but she may win that. I believe, and I was trying to find the story, that the Democrats are creating this whole new momentum or movement to make the Democrat Party more moderate, which, I mean, I guess is a good thing. Anytime we can pull parties to the right are a good thing, but obviously it's going to be harder for Republicans to win if the Ilhan Omars and the Peggy Flanagans are kind of left out in the cold from the Democrat Party. But they're having the same infighting on their side. So don't just, tell the Republicans, hey, we need to get along and win, because the Democrats are also doing the same thing. And
this is exactly my point. I think that the difference between the Democrats and the Republicans is that the Republican base is a traditional pro-America. We use the words America first, MAGA. I think America first. People who believe that America is the greatest country ever formed by man. Those people are our base on the Republican side. The Democrats created a group of voters. They pushed them to these extreme views, rewarded them for standing up and taking action on those views. But those views have gone now so far. They've just gone so far to the left that the average Democrat they know their base hates America. So if you're a Democrat who loves this country, and your party is routinely represented by people who clearly are destroying it, but you also have a tremendous social culture problem that if you were to talk positively about the Republicans, the backlash in the social groups, because especially since COVID, there's not, I mean, so many people have really, their friend groups have shifted, right? Where you can't talk about politics at all in a lot of areas because you'll be marginalized. So I think the Democrats are actually far more afraid of that than our people, right? So it's a very big deal that this issue in the Democrat Party is happening, and which is why I think Dean Phillips has done everything right, and Ken Martin, I think, it's just hard for me to believe that there isn't some, and I'm not saying it's fake. I think they recognize they have a problem in their party, and I think that they're probably very much aligned in wanting to win elections. The problem is, if they win, are they going to stay true to the things that they're saying they believe now, which is that they want the Democrat Party to move to the right? That's the real question. If they were elected, would they continue to govern that way? And I don't think that's true.
The Democrats have two opportunities to win next year,
Yep.
and that's either to cheat at the election at the polls,
which they already do, so it's okay,
or to portray themselves as being more moderate than they really are.
Right.
Those are the two paths for them to win.
That's right.
And I think you're seeing them kind of test both things, especially as conservatives start highlighting the election regularities and integrity issues. And I will talk about that in the next segment. I'll also make a plug for the Center of the American Experiment that's putting out some great seminars around the state on election integrity. This one called Rigged or Fair in Mankato. It's on May 11th, so we'll talk about that more in the next segment. You're listening to Political Pitchforks on AM 1280 The Patriot.
Okay, let's begin.
Welcome back to Political Pitchforks. I am Susan Smith here with Jeremy Munson, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the election integrity issues that are continuing to be in the forefront. These are very serious issues, and they're very controversial. Some people just can't believe that there are any irregularities in our elections. Other people, like me, believe that there's far too many for us to even keep track of half the time. And sometimes it's actually, these things happen because people just don't, they just don't understand the consequences of what is going on in our election system. And so Steve Simon was testifying before a committee at the United States House on election integrity. And a lot of issues came up in that testimony. Well, we have a recording of just one little piece of that. But, the issues that we have to talk about, as we mentioned earlier today, the absentee ballot boards, where the public is not allowed to observe, unlike election day, when people actually they go in and they can see what's going on and they can see people voting and how the process works. And there are people there that can observe and do things. And at the absentee ballot board, that is simply not the case. And it creates an opening for problems. And it's not difficult to cause those problems. There's a lot of reporting issues, et cetera, on that absentee ballot side. And then we have this huge, huge issue, I believe, with same-day voter registration. So for people who aren't registered to vote, there are laws that say, how long you have to live in your precinct before you can vote and all these things. But people just simply don't register to vote until Election Day. And I think, Jeremy, you'd agree that in many areas of the state, this creates a ton of chaos and work on Election Day on a system that really was not designed to field this kind of sort of onslaught of people. There are years we've had 400,000 people register to vote on Election Day. That is an incredible number across 87 counties. It's incredible.
Well, let's just kind of frame it as if for the people listening, why does it matter if you register on Election Day versus 2 weeks ahead? And some states require you to register to vote, a month ahead of time in order to vote in the election. And the reason why is because when you register to vote, even if you have an ID or a passport and prove that you're a U.S. citizen, they need to make sure that you are who you say you are by comparing your registration with federal records to make sure your social security number isn't bogus, and to make sure that you aren't registered in another state or that you haven't already voted early in another state. There's a lot of stuff we have to do to verify you are who you say you are. And when you register on Election Day, and it takes 7 to 10 days to verify who you are, you cast a ballot. And it's not the end of the world to register on Election Day. if you have provisional ballots in place, which
Right.
is you can vote, but we're going to set your ballot aside. We're not going to open it and scan it until we can prove who you are and that you have permission to vote. Minnesota is the only state that allows you to register on election day or 3 days, ahead of time, cast a ballot. We open it up, we scan it, and once the ballot is scanned, there's no record of that tying that ballot to the person. So we can't pull your ballot out when we find out that your information is bogus, your social security number doesn't make sense, all that kind of stuff. So this is why it's so important to have a time period where you have to either register ahead of time or we have provisional ballots. And so the clip that you want to play is members of Congress learning how loosey-goosey Minnesota's registration system is, that we allow people to vote without provisional ballots. And furthermore, because we don't have voter ID, somebody who just appears on the voter registry can vouch for multiple people.
Right.
That have no ID and no information on them. They can just, this person, I know this person to live in the district, and they can vote. That is just bonkers.
Right.
So, Aaron, you want to play this exchange with Congressman and our Secretary of State, Steve Simon, testifying in Congress?
I'm concerned a little bit about the vouching process. So you mentioned that only eligible voters can register when someone vouches for them. Is there a way of you qualifying their eligibility at that point?
Just to clarify, Representative, you're talking about the person doing the vouching or the person who's vouched for?
Both. Okay. I assume that the person vouching already has to be an eligible registered voter, right?
That's right.
Do you have a process to ensure that the ones they're vouching for are eligible?
Yes, Representative. Yes,
What is that?
that's all at the local level logged, basically. The person signs an oath. There's a log in place for the person or people that they're vouched for. And then after the election, that enables the folks at the county level, at the local level, to do that spot checking to make sure that they're eligible.
How much time passes between them verifying?
Days, maybe a couple of weeks. It depends. It depends on the county.
So are they the ballot that the voters that were vouched for, are they provisional ballots?
No, because we're NVRA exempt, we don't do provisional ballots in Minnesota.
So if you find out that they weren't registered voters, their vote still counts?
Theoretically, that would be the case.
Do you not see that that's a potential problem?
Well, I think it's a balance in that vouching is only for residency. So as to the two things you need to show to prove to register to vote in Minnesota, you are who you say you are and you live where you say you live. It's still on the voter to prove that they are who they say they are through ID, through all sorts of things. There's a long list that we allow. It's only the live where you say you live part. So so for example, it might be possible that someone is an eligible voter. They're a citizen, they're 18, all the rest, but they don't live where they say they live. They voted in the wrong place. That's certainly possible. But vouching only pertains to residency. No one is vouching for someone's citizenship, age, or anything else.
So I mean, shocking. And what Steve Simon didn't really talk about is that the person vouching for others may have just registered to vote themselves.
Right.
That is just, bonkers. And I've shared this story before, but when I worked for a financial firm downtown Minneapolis and I worked with a bunch of Indians who were all housed in Hopkins, they set up a poll station in their apartment building. And, these 7 Indians who all lived in a 2-bedroom apartment, they all voted. And it was one person registered to vote with a cable bill because they had a cable bill in their name proving residency. And then that person turned around and vouched for all of their roommates. And none of them were citizens. And they said it was so easy to vote. And they never asked if they were a citizen. All they needed was one person needed a cable bill and they could vouch for all their roommates. It was bonkers.
Yeah, but I think that people just don't understand that, first of all, people who are willing to burn down our city, right, are probably willing to vouch for somebody that maybe shouldn't be voting. I think we just have to understand that we have a group of people who really have been trained in the tactics of victory, and the tactics in the political war are, it's a war, and all is fair, and the ends justify the means. So when you believe the ends justify the means and winning is the end you need to have to get what you want, then cheating becomes acceptable. We just have people who do believe that, absolutely believe that. And so here we are now. I mean, Secretary, he actually confirmed. I mean, he's not even upset about it, right? I mean, yes, we grant driver's licenses to people who are undocumented. It does not indicate on their driver's license that they are not a citizen. They could register to vote. Now, he would say, well, that is their choice. And if they do that, they may be breaking the law, but there's no prosecution for it, right? And so those people who register to vote now go to vote, right? They can vouch for other people who they say are able to vote, right? And there isn't a way to back this up. He also confirmed, I think, there is a federal database that our state could use to help keep non-citizens from voting, and we don't use that. I believe. I think he testified to that, that he doesn't use that. So we just know that there are so many problems in our voting system. And by the way, don't forget that 1,000 of our 4,000 precincts, almost all outstate Minnesota, right? They have to mail in their ballots, whether they like it or not. They could hypothetically on election day all go to the county office, which for some of these districts, some of these counties are huge. Right?
Yeah, I'm in a mail-in ballot district, and since 2002, they closed my polling station, my local polling station in Lake Crystal. So the only way I can vote is by mail. They automatically send every registered voter in my household a ballot, and the ballots arrived. Even though my daughter's going to be off to college, a ballot, full primary and municipal elections and everything will be sent to my house. And you have a signature, vouching for someone on the outside of the ballot. Obviously, that stuff can be made up, but that ballot will be sent to my household every election until I tell the Secretary of State, stop sending them. And when you have people in the metro that sign up for the same program, and they move every 9 months on average, there's going to be ballots all over the place. I've went to nursing homes that have mail-in ballot districts, and there's a stack of ballots 40 high when they only have 12 residents. It's messy. There's no election integrity, and it's how we're going to continue to lose control of our election.
And I always, every time this issue of nursing homes comes up or group homes, I want to remind people that employees who work at nursing homes are allowed to help people vote. And many of those people who do work in nursing homes are political people. They are not people with no bias. And I hear all the time, there are people who actually go to help their loved one vote before the election and find out that they've already cast a ballot. Even and then if they talk about it, they don't even know. They just know somebody helped them. They don't have any idea what that person did. So if you do have a loved one in a nursing home, please make sure that there isn't somebody helping them vote, because you have no idea what kind of manipulation that can lead to. So we have a problem in Minnesota. We don't want to talk about it. We want to pretend it's not a problem, but it is a problem. It's a serious problem. And we have to stand up and say, it's not true, like mail-in ballots. It's not. The cost of that is one of the reasons why we switched away from in-precinct voting. But the truth is, what we spend now on 46-day elections, right, is incredible. It'd be far cheaper to go back to same-day voting across the whole state, no mail-in ballots. So we'll be back shortly, and I don't want to talk more about this, but there's a lot to talk about. So thanks for listening.
Okay, let's begin.
Welcome back to Political Pitchforks on AM 1280 The Patriot. I'm Jeremy Munson here with Susan Sjogren-Smith. We're talking about election integrity this hour and some other events. We're going to get into talking about AI in this segment. But the first thing to wrap up our election integrity issues, I want to make a plug for this great group in Minnesota called the American Experiment. If you go to americanexperiment.org, and click on the events, you'll find three of really important events on election integrity that their analyst Bill Walsh is going around the state. The first one is in Alexandria on May 4th, and there's one in Mankato on May 11th, and then in Duluth on May 20th. And this is where Bill Walsh will go up and talk about all the election integrity laws that we have in our state and all the holes in them, and how you'll find out we have very little election integrity. And as you know, having integrity in our elections is a direct tie to people's faith in government. If you don't know that your vote matters, then you realize how much we're losing control of our elections. So it's a really great presentation. I encourage people to go out there. Again, AmericanExperiment.org. Susan, this week,
Jeremy,
there was a post.
I want to say something really quick about this, because I think that one of the things that separates the Republicans from the Democrats is that the Democrats have a gazillion non-governmental organizations, which are actually offshoots of the government. Really, they're funded in a crazy way. But they take what they do, and then they have people who implement, who work on bringing that information and using it for things. We have this incredible organization in Minnesota, the Center, that they do some of the most amazing research. They dig deep. They really actually uncover serious issues. It's amazing. But we don't have enough organizations or people to take all of that hard work and turn it into actionable items to solve these problems. And I think it's something that I would encourage all these donors, who give money, who throw money away at things for no reason. Anything people can do to help take the information that the American Experiment brings us and help to actually use that information to solve problems. We just need far more of that, right? And we don't have enough of it. And I just want people to remember. I mean, we do have information that we could use, but we just aren't. We don't do like the Democrats.
We need to get this out to the voters. And in full disclosure, I'm on the board of the Center of the American Experiment Mankato chapter. Work with it. It's a great organization. Yeah. And a lot of white paper and think tank stuff, but they do a good job on sending out a magazine and promoting conservative principles and giving information out there to people to make informed decisions. Yep. This week, Dan Walter, who's I think he's a Minnesotan, he got a text message from an unknown political campaign or PAC that was attacking Minnesota U.S. Senate candidate Adam Schwarzy. It had an image of him shaking hands with Nikki Haley and a little heart-shaped, I think, I Heart Nikki badge on, saying that he betrayed President Trump. And, it's a typical attack ad that we've seen before. However, the image of him with Nikki Haley, which is realistic and could easily be interpreted to be real by an average person receiving this, violates the new Minnesota AI political law that the Republicans stupidly passed in, I think, the last session or 2 sessions ago. And what this law says is that if you post or share an image or video that has been altered or created by AI and could reasonably be interpreted to be real by someone, and it puts a candidate in bad light, I believe it's a felony, and you can get jailed. And if you are running for office, like if I were to share this post, the Secretary of State, Steve Simon, could remove me from the ballot in the fall as a penalty. Like you can literally, and so many images and videos that have been AI altered fall into this category. It's God, this law is so stupid. Yeah. In fact, Mary Franzen, who voted for the law, is now suing to have the law undone, because this is what Elon and it was trying to overturn in California, the same law. And I think the preliminary injunction was ruled against Mary Franzen, and they said in the ruling, because you voted for this, one of the reasons why they said that they're not going to put an injunction, but it's a terrible law. So I didn't share it because that would have been illegal. I commented on it saying it's illegal, and that David Hand or Royce White or Michelle Tafoya, if they're behind this, they could be removed from the ballot as a penalty. If it was Michelle Tafoya, what a slap on the, I mean, can you imagine removing a U.S. Senate candidate that raised millions of dollars because they sent out this attack ad with an AI generated image?
I think one of the problems with this law, you're touching on it, is that the vast majority of Minnesotans, I say this all the time, people can't remember the 10 Commandments, just 10 simple rules. People can't remember that. We have thousands and thousands of laws. People have no idea. They don't even know this is a law, right? People just get on social media. You can now go on AI and create things in 20 seconds. If if you're willing to pay $100 a month, the things they can do with this, you just type in 10 words and like, boom, in like 6 seconds, there's a song or there's whatever. And this is one of the problems with this law, is that people think they live in a country where, you can say what you want to say and do what you want to do. And here comes this law you don't even know about. And it's really important. I mean, I love diaper diplomacy, but see, everybody knows, that these people are not actually like 12 months old. But it's funny, actually, these little diaper
Are you
diplomas.
talking about the baby, like the baby Trump and things like that?
Yeah, and baby
that's
Kash
funny.
Patel. And
Look, I love AI. I'm against the law. I think it's a low blow to attack legislators like this, but at the same time, give it a couple of years, because right now people are like, I can't believe that image of Adam Schwarzy, and Nikki Haley. But in 2 years, people will assume that it's AI. Like there'll be this assumption that it's not believable until they can have the video or image checked by AI, and there'll be services out there that'll do it. So just give it time, but don't jail people and don't take people off the ballot for doing that. Almost every image is AI altered in some manner.
By the way,
this is a dangerous, dangerous law.
By the way, Jeremy, I also think we should just understand that anything can be AI, because I can tell you there are candidates all over the country, probably the world, that are using AI to make themselves appear to be far greater speakers than they are, far greater. I mean, it's incredible, some of the stuff. I look at that person, that is not what they're going to do. And so I think we have to remember, when you look at a video and you use that video to determine whether you're going to vote for somebody, you're not voting for a video. You're voting for an actual candidate who's a real person. And I just think this issue of technology can be used both to overstate who you are or to lie about who someone else is. Both things, and we just have to be wary and do research. How do they actually vote? What have they actually done in their life? Because that's the real problem. Is too many people don't actually know who they're voting for. They just vote for an R. If we took all the R's and all the D's and all the independents and all the incumbents off, and you just had a ballot with names in front of you, I would bet well over half the voters wouldn't even be sure who they should vote for at all. Because we know from the man on the street interviews, people often can't even say who their senators are, right. So it's a problem. And
that I go back to this, and I tell everybody when they call me and say, who do you support, or should I vote for this person again? And I say, go look at the scorecards, because scorecards don't lie. Right. If you're talking about federal stuff, I recommend the newamerican.com. It's a great scorecard for it says it's a congressional scorecard based on the U.S. Constitution. Amazing. So the newamerican.com, if you're in the state of Minnesota and you want to check out state legislators, my go-to scorecard is the LEA. So lea-mn.org. They've been ranking state legislators in the House and Senate since 1972. Awesome scorecard. If you care about our Constitution and the core principles of the Republican Party, they rank legislators by liberty, and it is a great scorecard. It allows you to separate the wheat from the chaff when it comes to members of the state House, so in the state Senate.
So Jeremy, let's talk about Lego. Let's talk about our favorite toy in America.
Everybody needs to go out there and to go to Twitter, go to X, and search Lego Iran, and you will see a plethora of AI-generated videos, some of them really catchy, pointed propaganda undermining the Trump administration. I'm sure it's driving Trump and everybody else crazy, because they are impressive videos, and it's an inexpensive tool for Iran to use to shed light on Epstein and all the other stuff that's going on behind the scenes with Israel.
I think that we may see an AI video taking the diaper diplomacy babies and then the Lego characters in the Lego one and starting to pound on those Lego ones and throw them away.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, and why Lego? Because the social media platforms censor realistic imagery,
right,
but they don't censor cartoons and that kind of stuff. So that's one of the reasons why they're using Lego in their animation for AI.
Although I think YouTube might have started banning them. I think maybe from some pressure. Yes. And I think, again, this is the issue with free speech. When do we have it and when do we don't? And who decides, right? I mean, I would think that we will have people creating their own Lego videos, right? To counter that's and AI is getting to the point where actually you don't even have to be the one to do it. You just say, create an AI video of Lego that switches the roles of the people, right? And you'll literally immediately take the same video, it'll turn into the other side. It's crazy. I don't know, this AI is unbelievable. I get more messages about, are you using this one, are you using that one? And I honestly don't understand most of them. So, Jeremy, make your recommendations about AI, I guess, on your Facebook. But we're in trouble. This AI is beating us, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Well, good luck, everybody, this week.